So the Lord of the foreign lands, the foreign countries. We understand that we look at the different stellas, the Merprenant stela, and it talks about Israel, Yisrael, right? And the Habaru, the Hebrew. Understand Kukuklan in this location, the Goku, and the Hebrew, the Giku, the Goku, Kuku people, right? The Meshi and the crown here in the west, the sunset, the eastern wind, Shu, the Shashu. Understand the west, Shabbat, the home, the resting place, the dwelling place in the hidden land. So understand this is the Lord of the foreign countries, the epithet, Sabudu. Understand the ancient Hebrew capital, love. Land. Understand the dividing of the kingdom of Israel and the Jews and the Moors that coming to the New World. These foreign lands, the India, and the Greek word says the 12 tribes scattered abroad in the book of James in the first chapter. You understand the broad diaspora. We look at the Indies, understand the diaspora. So here in the Greek New Testament, you have evidence or proof that they had knowledge that the Tolteca, right, were the 12 tribes of Israel here in the Indios, in the Indies. We understand diaspora. We talk about diaspora. So you understand Pyrrhuc, fire in the middle, move, the mutual point for the beginning and the ending of the new day, Los Angeles, right? The city of El, the last. Look at the spiral, understand the dragon, the volcanoes, the Pacific, the transition from the ending and the beginning of the day. The Golden State, the dawn, where you see the dawn, understand the tribe of Dan and the submerged continent, the submerged waters, the land of the Vulcans, the volcano. The form of Horus in the Kim, the old Upper Egyptian capital. So we talk about ancient Egypt. So when you look at Sudupu and the land of the foreign lands, understand the Western Hemisphere and the New World. These are these regions here of the Americas. The Merprenant stela, and it talks about Israel, Yisrael, right? And the Habaru, and many other texts, right, as a negative thing, right? Even in the scriptures in Genesis 11 chapter, this was a negative thing that these Negroes. Understand, we look at Amaraka, the two seas, right? You got the Atlantic Ocean in the west. This is the Nagas, the serpents, Hey Haru, Haru Salam. Korean Empire invaded and changes the meaning of a lot of this document. That's why he's referred to as an Asiatic influence, right? And the standard that was used for the west and the hawk and Amuru, the Naga, right? The serpents. And you see, so when we look at the twins of Sudupu, the foreign lands, we have to understand these doors to the Western Hemisphere, the New World, where Ghana, where the month of Tammuz, the time of the Tropic of Cancer, to the time of the ending of Sagittarius, the winter solstice, the Tropic of Capricorn. These measures, when we understand the east, the forefront, from where the sun crosses between these four directions, or these four cardinal points. So when we look at the Kadim and the ancient, the men of ancient, as the scriptures of Deuteronomy mentions, the ancient, the aforetime. So when we look at the time of the Sagittarius and this time of the winter solstice and this crossing and merrymaking, Saturnalia, when we understand messages and hearing from the heavens, messages, the oracles, the season of honoring, was also a time we understand war and the time of offering. So as we see here in the Kim, Sudupu, as I showed y'all, this is the Lord of the foreign lands. So you see here them coming into this land. This is why after the dynastic periods, you see that Sudupu, right, becomes, right, changed, right, demoted, right? So we understand that this dynasty, this world dynasty, eventually was minimized, right, under the destruction of black civilization. So we see here is a worldwide, right, unity of blackness ruling the world, right? But this is looked as in the Bible and many other texts, right, as a negative thing, right? Even in the scriptures in Genesis 11 chapter, this was a negative thing that these Negroes had established universal dominion in the world under, right, the Falcon, under the divine. Language was changing at different times. The dialects, Bat and Hat Haru. When you look at Haru, the horizon, in this location, and Sirius star in Mexico, and the Sabbath, the 6 days, and how the calculations of 1,000. When we look at the cap of man, 120 degrees was the cap, 120 days. So when we look at this decimal, kilo to decimal, 1 day, which is a decimal, 10% is as a kilo. So when we looked at 100%, so you times a kilo times that, that's how you get 100. You know what I'm saying? You understand? You know what I mean? We're talking about the measure and how we would, a lot of times when we look at these different things, these different kings lists and different things, and you see these numbers, you got to understand some of these things are as in days and periods and times and epoch and ages in these calculations. Because they're using different systems, different things, and expressing so you can understand larger than life and someone in authority. You know what I'm saying? So these things are essential to understanding. So this is why the circle and a lot of symbolism of what we take to be satanic and what have you, truly is. And you see here, you see that? Alright, look at it. Okay. See that flag? This formation of time and seasons, and we see how in certain regions they have 2 seasons and 4 seasons is only in certain subtropics, northern and southern, right? But when we look at the sea zones and how
this particular map even revealed
the wind
the Pacific
patterns and
Ocean
the traveling,
before it was
along the migration,
by white people.
After the fall of Rome, for about 1,000 years until 1492, Europeans had no access to the Western Hemisphere. So you look at Thorhedral and you see how he took the same style ships from the pre-Inca. So this is the style here, the crescent style, right? So when you see the dragon, the serpent, and the snake, understand that this culture of the dragon, the serpent, the Naga, the 7 heads.
There's a solid archaeological evidence that African sailors
So you look at Peru and you see the Mochica, understand this is a Moor, right? Moors. You understand the Carthage and the... So this is why we find the similarities when we look. It's in reference to this transition of the suns. So the renewal of the sun and all of the solar mythos around this time at the end of Sagittarius, where you have the death of the sun. This occurs in this basin, all right? So when we look at Moses' pattern, the pattern that was shown to Moses, and this great basin that encompasses these 4 cardinal points or these 4 regions, this was essential to the pattern and to the order that kings, Negus rulers, would have to follow. So when we understand rulers in a sense today, they're looked at as kings, the mightiest, the strongest, right? But the rulers had to measure, and they had a purpose. So when we look at Psalms 82, and it talks about God having a purpose to deliver the poor, the fatherless, and the widows. When we look at these people that took on these solar mythos, and they took on these, and they brought in the times that they came, teachings that would cultivate in regions and lands, right, to sustain their area or their region specifically, because they had universal knowledge. So these universal travelers that traveled along this pattern shown to Moses, this cross, when you look at Hebrews and to cross and the crossings in Thot and Thet, the mark, and Cain, and the mark as Cain left the Canaanites, we have to understand linguistics and language and why people name themselves after certain monuments. We understand the Most High put his mark upon Cain, right? So this is essential thing to Cain and why you see the land of Canaan and Joshua coming in to conquer this land of Canaan. But understand,
there's the Star of the East, silver's in the cross. Right now, it ends up in European paintings. That would be the caressing, okay, or the Ka, or Nectar's spirit would rise with the helical rising of Ceres. So when you look at their pictorial art, the cross represented Ansu, had nothing to do with no crucifixion. The stars right here, Siptah or Ceres, the nectar, now they turn into a crucifixion, Antichrist, white Jesus with blood and death and all this. But the original caress was the nectar who was going to go into the spiritual or the afterlife. Let's bring the Bible dictionary.
they don't understand that these disciples, these apostles, once Christ returned in Acts, they wanted to know when the kingdoms of Israel was going to be restored. So this is the key. Fear the black Messiah, restoration, redemption, being made whole. That exists in this kaf. When we understand the lily, the loop, the latter, even the DNA. When we look at the DNA and the pineal gland in the beginning, when the earth was without form and void and darkness was upon the face of the earth. So we got to understand when we look at the shin and the triangle, the shinar, shiny and the shiner, and what this is in representing. When we look here at the shin of this passing from death into new life, see this crossing here, this orient across this 180 degrees of time frame until you reach the midpoint, midnight. So when the sun set here at 6, fire in the middle. Understand the three kings, right? Understand the wise men. And you understand Paru and Peru, Paheru, the first and the last, the lost kings, the last. You understand the term Indians, what they call this Indians, Dia, in the day, the last part of the day. They talk about diaspora. So you understand Paru, fire in the middle, move the mutual point for the, talking about diaspora, the ending part of diaspora, the Spiro. Understand Peru, and pyramid. The new in the Caribbean and the Taino, Ta'anu, understand the relationship with Cain and rulership and the scepter and the mound with the cross, with the ball. When you look at the Caribbean and canoe and Cain, understand the west coast and the canoe and these two land masses at 120 degrees west and 120 degrees east make this pillar that is in balance with this 0 degrees of the prime meridian. So we understand this shin and this great triangle and this trinity of this ancient empire. When we look at these, the shin and these 3 stars in the star system of the full of Orion's belt and the forming of the pyramid structures and the mounds here in this land, understand that these mountain regions of protection of covering this Kafah, this ancient location, all the way from these mountain regions and what takes place during the Arctic, during the fall, as we get closer to the winter, and this fur trade that existed here in this parallel because of these individuals that lived in this Arctic polar region.
Shan, or Asha'an, is another way to say the one you know is Shem. Another way to say his name is Asha'an, which is where the word shaman comes from. And the information is in the scriptures. How the Western Hemisphere is the borders of Ashan. Ashan is the one you know as Shem. And this is why you must be concerned with your lands. Because look around you.
Especially us here in America, the first thing they did was to conquer us because it was more of us here than we.
These are the original Amaru Khans. These are the original Olmec sheep. These are our ancestors. These are called the Olmec Colossi. Colossi from colossal. And these are massive stone carvings of white people.